Okay, so one of the biggest traffickers ever, Fabio Ochoa, was released today. He did about 25 years, and you may remember him from the infamous Medellin. Fabio Ochoa was released from federal prison after serving about 25 years, and his father, old man, aka the fat man, Don Fabio Ochoa Restrepo, is who very cleverly placed Pablo Escobar on the world stage and made him the face of cocaine.
Il faut être réaliste. Nous sommes en train de vivre la civilisation de la cocaïne. La cocaïne est en train d'envahir le monde. Pourquoi est-elle en train de l'envahir? Parce qu'elle est une drogue moins...
We need to accept that we are living in the age of the civilization of cocaine. This is what Pablo said. So Pablo Escobar was making the point that cocaine is simply a natural resource that Colombia had that they could sell for money. And they thought of it like the Arabs used oil, or a different country used coal.
600 in the U.S. or something like that.
It became a co-insurance cooperative. Okay? So Pablo has 1,000 kilos, you have 1,000, he has 500. Pablo's got the plane, the setup. You load it up all together, and you share
compunction to avoid selling cocaine because it was kind of arbitrary. The Ochoas were a family of horse breeders. They owned a big restaurant in Medellin. They had political contacts, and they got involved in the cocaine business after seeing how lucrative it was when Pablo broke it open.
Did you interact with the Ochoas ever?
Always. I mean, I'm the guy that saved his daughter, my God. You know.
So, because my calculation is that the living person who smuggled the most cocaine, oversaw it, is the one that's just living in Spain now, did 5 years as part of the amnesty. The one brother, Jorge, the young or whatever. No. They got no punishment. But, well, Fabio stupidly came back to the U.S. and got that 30-year case.
Yeah. Well, the Ochoas were businessmen first. They had huge land holding, cattle.
And they were part of the political
horses.
They had political power.
Yeah, they came in because they saw the kind of money Pablo.
Well, they came in later.
Yeah, they came in later.
Is Pablo the one who broke it open, really?
Yeah. Pablo breaks it open in two ways. First, he had big balls, and he hooks up with Cubans and starts sending stuff to the U.S. So he opens the gateway to America.
Now that was Ramon Milian Rodriguez, who testified in front of Congress, the Kerry Committee, back in 1988 as part of his plea bargain. He was the accountant for Pablo Escobar from the mid-70s until the mid-80s. Escobar, of course, didn't go down until 91, but Mr. Rodriguez served about 27 years in federal prison. He is now free in Miami and other places and owns a Rolls-Royce rental company and some banks. Probably the most intelligent criminal I've ever spoken to in person. And in fact, he's not, I mean, he is technically a criminal, but he was an actual CIA asset, and he was Pablo Escobar's money launderer. He was a certified public accountant. So the creation of the Medellin cartel is actually probably, you could say, happened in 1981, and Mr. Ramon Milian Rodriguez was a part of that. And starting in 1980, there was a criminal group, M19, March 19th, which was a left-wing political group in Colombia. They were kidnapping the children of wealthy Colombian families. They were kidnapping American businessmen, like officials of oil companies that were down there, and ransoming them. So a meeting was called by the traffickers, by American businessmen, by other Colombian business people that weren't in crime. Ramon Milian Rodriguez, who had already been working with Pablo Escobar for some time, took charge of putting together this group called MAS, Mas Sequestradores, Death to Kidnappers. And Death to Kidnappers was used to kill hundreds of people associated with M19, and they had caused the traffickers to get involved when they kidnapped Marta Nieves Ochoa, the sister of Fabio Ochoa and the other Ochoa brothers. And Pablo Escobar is often given credit for getting her back for the Ochoas, and he did because it was his employee, Ramon Milian Rodriguez, who set up the hit squads that went after the left-wingers. And then also, not only were they going after kidnappers, they were going after union officials and stuff, because the American businessmen who had the CIA's ear, they wanted anyone that could be labeled a communist, which really could just meant you were a union organizer. They wanted them taken out so they could keep wages low. But again, another big story, iceberg that would have to be talked about in depth on its own. The Medellin cartel really comes together in about 1981 with Rodriguez Gacha, Carlos later, the Ochoas, and Escobar coming together into Masa Sequestradores, because the Ochoas, the Escobar, Rodriguez Gacha, later, and some others were already huge traffickers on their own.
Some of the most ruthless drug bosses are now prominent, accepted figures in Colombian society. Pablo Escobar and other cartel leaders under indictment in the United States have owned leading professional soccer teams in the country. One of Colombia's leading television stars has had an open romantic relationship with Escobar. And one of the country's top sports heroes, Matador Dario Chica, is closely associated with the Ochoa family. And in the remote areas of Colombia, where the drug bosses operate their cocaine business, they live like feudal lords. One drug boss even has a castle. They spend millions raising fancy show horses, and their ranches and farms are some of the biggest in South America.
Kidnapping thing, and Ramon Milian setting up Death to Kidnappers let them come together. They started working with Noriega, laundering money, and that was really the peak of the Medellin cartel from, 81 till Carlos later got taken into custody, maybe 87. He had the island in the Bahamas that was used for everything to run through. And what's amazing is that Fabio Ochoa and his two brothers, Juan David and Jorge, they beat the game. Thanks to, remember at the beginning, we showed that Pablo Escobar interview, and I said that Don Fabio placed Pablo in that public limelight as the face of violence and cocaine. That interview and other interviews that Pablo was doing in Pablo's entry into politics was backed from behind by Don Fabio, and everyone in the world thought of Pablo Escobar as the face of cocaine, and he was certainly the face of violence. So when he was gunned down or fell or jumped off whatever that rooftop in 1991, it was like, oh, aha, the American government and the Colombians have done their job. We got the world's biggest drug dealer. But at the same time that was happening, the three Ochoa brothers, who probably sold more yayo than Pablo even, cut a deal where they would serve about 5 years in Colombian prison, and then Colombia agreed to never extradite them to the United States, and they turned themselves in, and they served their 5 years. Their mother cooked all their meals for them while they were in prison in Colombia, and they got out in about 1996. Juan David and Jorge, Fabio's two brothers, apparently stayed out of the yayo business. Now, of course, they claimed that the billions that they had made had been burned up on lawyers and security, but their families, along with many other families on a smaller scale, tens of thousands of families from Colombia and other countries of South America were set permanently on a new path of wealth and being capitalists. And Jorge Ochoa went and lived in Spain and kept breeding horses and bulls like his father before him. Juan David, I think, stayed in Colombia. He died of a heart attack in maybe '01 or maybe 2011, maybe. Yeah, more like 2011. So Fabio's two brothers never went back in. They only served 5 years for being two of the key cogs of the Medellin cartel. Fabio, stupidly, as soon as he got out, he got right back into the business. He was indicted in 1999 for importing about 100,000 kilos into the U.S. between 97 and 99. He was taken into custody in Colombia. Colombia doesn't give you life. I think you can only get 22 years for murder in Colombia. Like, you can't get life in prison in Colombia. So a deal was cut between Colombia and the U.S. After 2 years, they extradited Fabio to the U.S. in 2001. 2003, he was sentenced. He got 30 years. So let's see, he's been in custody since 99. So he did about 25 years. I'm sure all those billions of dollars he made in those 2 years went into the family coffers, but he didn't need to do it. He was addicted to the game, apparently. Now, whether his two brothers just didn't get caught up in it because they were smarter or whatever, I don't know. But two of the Ochoa brothers, who were part of the Medellin cartel, every bit as much as Pablo and Rodriguez Gacha and the rest, they cut a deal and did 5 years. And this interesting scene was going on in Mexico right now, where the sons of Mr. Guzman have brought in El Mayo. El Mayo's own son already served his 11 or 12 years. He's free in the U.S. He testified against Guzman. And El Chapo's wife turned herself in and did her few years. And they've just raised the bounty on El Mencho to $15 million. So I think in Mexico right now we're watching the same spectacle, the same public show designed to make us think that there even could be such a thing as a war on drugs, which there really can't be. You can't. Clearly, as we see, humans, especially in the United States, but in all the wealthier countries, if you got some excess time on your hand and a couple bucks, people like getting high, whether it's drinking alcohol, using tobacco. I mean, remember, tobacco is a strong drug alone. Hit a cigarette and hold it in. Hit a Newport and hold it in and tell me that ain't a drug. So I think the tale of Fabio Ochoa and his brothers was the first chapter in an inevitable storyline that ends with the legalization even of hard drugs. I think right now the guys in Mexico, Chapo's sons, are working deals to kind of say less Fetty, less ODs, will turn into most famous kingpins who can look like you're doing something. The overdose deaths will come down and cut us sweet deals. We'll turn in a few billion and we'll keep a few billion. And that's what capitalism is all about. So just like the robber barons in the 1800s, I mean, think about the Europeans who denuded Haiti and parts of the United States of all the timber, sucked up all the coal, ran through the countryside, destroyed whole mountains to have railroads, and that money still exists now. And the money brought in by Pablo and the rest of the Medellin cartel, chiefly the Ochoas in the 70s, 80s, into the 90s, built the Colombian economy. It built the economy of Miami. in Palermo, Sicily. Heroin money coming in from New York in the 67 or 70s and 80s really built up the economy there in the poorest part of Italy. So dope is a commodity. The Ochoas sold the commodity of their country. Fabio made the mistake. He beat the game. He was part of Medellin cartel, did 5 years, got out, wanted to do it again, and just had to do 25 years, but he's back out. So that was a quick update on Fabio Ochoa, El Prophet, American Dope.
They were all low life, you know. But leather, gacha, the Ochoas were not that low life. They were gentlemen. But the other guys were thugs.